10:05 a.m. The absence of our chair, Nick Heisel, I'll be in the order. We need to do the minutes first, then.
Yeah, do we want to make a motion to approve the minutes from January?
I'll second.
Okay, so motion made by Chris E, seconded by Don Yates. And then, do we want to roll call? With them.
You need a vote on that.
But
Unanimous,
She got
do we need to vote on the minutes?
Usually.
yeah, I think so. So, all in favor of approve those have been, moved and seconded to approve the minutes from last month. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Minutes are approved.
Official.
It's official. Yeah, all right, so we'll do roll call really quick. Lindsay Walker. Present. Kevin Donner is absent. Denny Kaiser is absent. Doug Fuller.
Present.
Alan
Here.
Elliott, right? Did I get that right?
Yes.
All right, Jada Steffel. Here. Caroline Mullering is absent. Stephanie Marchbanks. Present. Chris Key.
Present.
And Don Bates.
Here.
Perfect, all right.
We do have a quorum.
We do have a quorum and. Which I'm happy about, because I was a little nervous, I didn't hear a lot of RSVPs from everybody when I sent out the email. So I guess we'll just jump right into it. So committee updates. So with us today, we have Darcy Wright, and I didn't know, if we all wanted to take a second just to introduce ourselves. Darcy applied from Petoskey Plastics, so you want to share anything, Darcy?
Just a avid recycler and composter. That's kind of a weird fashion, but that's a little bit of my background. No, I'm kidding. And so I've filled the R&D role at Petoskey Plastics for the past 3 years. So I'm excited to be here. I'm grateful that you guys have made entertainment being part of the team. So thank you.
Really appreciate it. Chris, you want to start off introductions just so Darcy knows who we all are and where we're from?
Chris Keith, Chief Environmental, I manage the Sheboygan Hauling Company, Elk Grove Landfill and Highway in Wexford County Landfill. That's perfect.
Don Mason, County Commissioner.
And I must say that Don Mapes was our former transfer station operator for 35 years, 38 years. He brings a plethora of experience to this role, which has been fun. Hi, Lindsay Walker, so Petoskey.
I'm Stephanie Marchbanks, Community Planner with Networks Northwest, which serves as the regional planning agency for all 10 counties, Northwest Michigan and Emmet County, West Banks.
I'm Doug Fuller. I've been an at-large member of the DPW board for the last 6 years, but officially I'm representing a local environmental group on this committee, which is Petoskey Codify.
Al Elliott, Operations Manager at WL.
I'm not on your committee, but supporting you all in the development of your plan, Kristen Wieland from RRS, live in Traverse City, and your normal person, your normal representative is Elisa Seltzer. Is in Mexico at the moment, so you can all tell us, you'll probably see.
I'm Noelle, I work for Emmet County Recycling, I do communication and education.
I'm Jana Steffel, I'm the Emmet County DPW Director, and I serve on this board as the MERS representative.
And then I'm Ashley McMurray, and I am the Deputy Director for Emmet County Recycling and DPW, and I am serving as the designated planning agency for this committee, otherwise known as the DPA. All right, so yes, Darcy should be with us formally appointed by the February 19th BOC, if everything goes well, I think, so her application has been received. Again, we have the committee member feedback form, input form. I don't think we've received anything in there, so I'm gonna go ahead and assume that that's probably not the best method of communication. if you want to reach me, email is fine, you can call, text. I will answer, and if you still wanna use the feedback form, please feel free if you wanna keep it anonymous, that's always fine as well. So kind of jumping into some of the, January follow-up, we at the last meeting talked briefly about the public engagement session in April. We were talking in our prep meeting, and we're wondering if we wanna move that further out, once we kind of have the goals more formalized, so we have something to share and ask for feedback on, and input. And we're hoping that maybe, we had talked about the fair, because we've been offered to have a booth at the fair, but that feels a little late in the game if we're trying to have this all approved, to go out to the municipalities by October, so I'm wondering. We were talking amongst ourselves and staff. We're at a lot of different events in the public, so we're doing like the home show, we're at the farmers markets. So I'm wondering if instead of doing an actual public engagement session in April, if we wanna just host a regular meeting. And as the summer starts to progress, we can, once we have our goals more formalized, and I think that the intent behind that is, we're aiming for March at the next meeting, I would think by then we'll have something put together with all of the goals, so the recycling. We'll loop back, cause I know that we have some materials on organics that we wanted to share with you that RRS provided, they did an NRDC evaluation, so we'll bring that forward and share the results from that, and then we can kind of go through all of the goals that we've made, so the recycling, the organics, and what we're gonna do today is the special materials. And kind of present those to you all, so we can go through and work through them, talk through them, and then if those are approved at that meeting or in the April meeting, then we can go forth in the farmers markets, at the home show, you know, we can go to the business expos and start sharing that information out. We can send out another survey if we wanted to with those goals and objectives, and ask for feedback, just like we did the residential survey. So I'm thinking that that might be an easier path for us, rather than trying to host this engagement session when we don't really have anything quite ready to share in April. It feels a little preemptive, and I just want feedback on that from you all. What your thoughts are on that.
I think it makes sense. You don't wanna set a date for something and not be very intentional about like the why you're doing it, and so gathering enough fodder to then present something in a public forum, I think makes a lot more sense. And also, if we get real strategic about like planning for those events, like the home show that's happening March 13th, 14th. And 13th and 14th at North Central Michigan College, we normally have a booth there anyway, it's usually targeted towards some material. But this could be a full court press of our colleagues being out at the home show and taking live surveys, because sometimes like giving a person a QR code or a paper survey, it's like, okay, like when are they gonna do it? Whereas like if you can capture a person in the moment and have some kind of like incentive, like.
We're also at Bliss Fest, we can have those surveys or something at Recycle Village set up.
In July.
In July to share all of that, because I think the people that are at Bliss are kind of community oriented. They tend to be a little bit greener, and so they may love to see that, or at least take information on it and look at it when they're at home after Bliss Fest, so. Because our public comment hearing, we're aiming for that in July and August.
That's the required one.
That's the required
Is
one.
the ones we're talking about aren't even really required.
They're not required. And I think when we created the work program, we were under the impression that the public engagement sessions were required. They're not, so when I submit a reimbursement or a quarterly report to Eagle, I'll just go in and say. We've decided to do X, Y, and Z instead of the public engagement session, and this is how we're achieving our public engagement. So whether it's surveying, being out in the community, doing the business hours. The home show, Project Connect, we can show justification as to why we changed. And this timeline, so the goal is to have the MMPC approve the draft MMP Materials Management Plan. In October. And that is when we wanted to have all of those revisions done, so that way it could go to the county and then for approval, and then it'll go through to the municipalities for approval, and so we wanted to give ourselves almost 9 months to do that. So the goal was, because the plan needs to be done in July of 2027, which will be here before we know it. That's how I feel about October. I'm like, oh, we've got a lot to do before October. So I wanna make sure that we're utilizing our time well. And if that means asking some of you folks to maybe attend a couple of different municipality, like township meetings, just to share what's going on, if that's something that you would be open to, we would appreciate it. We're, as staff, we only have so much capacity, and so leaning on the committee a little bit more for some of that might be an ask. So I think that that's the approach we're gonna take for the public engagement. It just seems like we're not quite ready to do something in April anyways, and if for some reason, we don't have the plan totally approved, if the public comment hearing gets pushed back to September, we could do the 30-day notice at the fair and have that booth represented there and say, hey, there's gonna be a public hearing, period and comment period coming up for this draft plan. We would love you to review this information, provide feedback, because then we have the 30-day period. There's the 10-day period where they can provide the public comment, and then we have the 30-day period where we go in and take all that information and make the revisions, the notes, and then move forward with the approval process. So also something to consider.
It seems like you might actually have more interaction with the public, at the events that you talked about, than
Okay.
having a special meeting. I was kind of wondering that, like, how many people will really come out?
Yeah.
But, you're gonna have a
Yeah.
full audience anyway, and so,
Well, and with the city and the county working on their master plans right now, maybe at another event, that if they're doing another event, we could piggyback off of it and be like, hey, this is also going on in the county right now, and these are the goals and objectives of the plan that's coming. Maybe we'll have a survey created by them so that they can provide feedback on it that way, so.
Cause the county, in addition, like the planning and zoning department is hiring a firm, they've hired a firm and they're doing like public engagement, and that firm is like pretty set on like how they get participation. So they're going through the chamber, the different committees, they're bringing the surveys, the QR codes, and like the next steps for public engagement to the forefront and meeting people where they're at. So
Yeah,
just even thinking about a tentative schedule, Project Connect is coming up in February or April. Okay, so that's after the home show. So that's another opportunity where we have a booth or a table. We're also doing event recycling simultaneously. So that's a great, I can just see us deployed with clipboards.
yeah,
And also garnishing some of the assistance of our board, our DPW board, as well as this team to be like, there might be some volunteer efforts for these team members to like come out to an event for an hour or 2 hours. And if you haven't taken the surveys yourself, like get in the practice of taking the survey and see what it feels like, and then you can survey others.
yeah, and we could share the survey at HHW. Some of you wanted to come to our HHW event just to do some surveying on the side as people are coming through the event. That would be super helpful. We have funds available. We could do an ad in the chamber with the survey. So there's a lot of ways to do public engagement without having to actually like have a session. So, and I think we might have better success that way anyways.
Yeah, can I ask another question?
Yeah.
So in terms of the firm that we've hired with RRS, have you folks had any experience with like who's been super successful with both business and residential surveys? Cause I was sitting in a meeting with 2 weeks ago with Matthew Cook, who's representing like from Networks Northwest, like 7 communities. And he was going, like in Antrim, I think Antrim County, he was going from business to business surveying himself, and I was like, whoa. What? Good job for boots on the ground. I don't know what that looks like in our own community. I can't imagine as a planner, like taking the time to like go, not do cold calls and go door to door and survey. So I guess like getting in that habit of like carrying them with me and like having the clipboard and the QR code, I just think it's like a kind of a practice that I just need to like do.
Yeah, cause we sent Natalie out, we sent Mackenzie out door to door to businesses and did what we could in that regard. So we did make those efforts.
Yeah, of course.
They were there.
And I think at some point you wanna set a goal of like, what's the percentage of businesses and residents that we hope to survey? And then, I mean, once you set a goal, then kind of work backwards of like, what that looks like physically. That's what I'm trying to ask the question to RRS, do you have examples of communities that have been really successful with their surveying of both business and residences, and kind of like what that looks like in those respective communities?
Yeah, so, Washtenaw County did, because they have a business, they're already sort of nurturing a business focused, outreach. They have businesses that they have kind of a program, so they had a group already that they were able to get some data from. That supported some of the plan, all plan of the goal settings. So I guess looking forward to goals, if you want to get more engagement from businesses, you could nurture a business group like that and really recognize businesses for the achievements that they're making in materials management going forward. Doesn't solve the now problem though. I don't know how Charlevoix ended up getting as many responses as they did, but of all of the counties that Matthew is doing the survey for, the network Northwest, Charlevoix by far had the most responses. I don't know that it was businesses, or I don't know what the breakdown was of businesses versus residents, but Charlevoix had several hundred.
Okay, well, and we're hosting both Charlevoix and Antrim County Materials Management Planning this month at our facility on February 23rd, is that correct?
26.
26th, so they're doing their meeting and at our facility, we haven't really worked at these days, like in the break room. And then we're doing a tour.
Yeah.
And so we could also like acknowledge them, like, it's like a mutual appreciation society, right? One, like, we give a lot to other entities, but like in this context, we can like, wow, we heard that you guys were super successful in your surveys, like, good job. How did you do it? How can we emulate and learn from you folks as well? Just kind of as like pumping them up a little bit to make them feel good about the process. And
Did you do a survey for local governments as well, local units of government?
I did not, I don't have their, like, the reflection survey, I'll get it out to their.
Oh, as a.
Yeah, I didn't look at the specific for them.
Okay, Matthew did one just for local units of government, so he was able to get that leadership perspective within, you know, to be able to compare, what residents are saying to what the perspective is of local leadership, to see if there's a disconnect.
okay, that's helpful. I guess, I have another question, excuse me. Or a comment. I guess as elected official representative, I want to know, because we don't have committees that we serve on and we report back at our monthly meetings. So in both the context as a county representative, that's pretty much common in terms of the format of your meetings. So have you been, or like, what does it look like to report back on a monthly basis in terms of the committees that you're serving on, including materials management?
Mostly it's general, just because sometimes I got maybe 7 things to be also important.
Right,
But
okay,
I don't get very specific.
okay.
You know, I encourage people to show up, right? So it's sterile.
Okay. And then I guess my other question would be to Denny Kaiser as Bear Creek Township representative. What that kind of reporting back and engagement looks like to him, because I don't have experience in that. I mean, I'm serving my 4th term, but we don't serve on committees and at city level, and so. Like getting in the practice of reporting back, like what that looks like from a municipal role, wearing that hat here, and I'm not sure where I would really refer to.
So in your city council meetings, do you not do a report out of kind of like what's going on
We
here?
don't, but I wanted to, that was one of my goals for 2026 was to start doing that, because otherwise your agenda is already set and you're dealing with business that's already like lined out on the agenda, so you really need to get.
So how do you ask to have something like that put on the agenda? So you
You
guys can
just a
report
month
out?
in advance, you float it with the mayor and then the city manager who create the agendas, for our twice monthly meetings.
So that's what I would, yeah,
Okay.
I would go that way.
For them to our MMP page on our website, I'm happy to link that, and then they will be getting minutes and agendas for our meetings.
Okay. All right, and so doing some kind of presentation, and I know eventually Emmet County Recycling will have a municipal and township kind of like plug and play presentation. Getting ready for like, we need approval of 3/4 of our townships and municipalities in the county, is that right? So, yeah, kind of what that looks like.
3/4 of the ones that respond.
3/4 of the ones that respond.
Of the count or municipality decides not to like acknowledge it or respond at all, they're not
Our
counted.
solid waste.
Yeah, they're not counted against us.
So in previous incarnations, like our previous solid waste ordinance, we had. McKinley and Wawatam didn't sign up.
Maple.
Mid. Okay,
And Maple River has since, have they signed on? Did they end up signing on? No.
Heart Lake did, I don't know what
Yeah.
township that represents, okay, I get, yeah, so there's some ideas there, and like, because I'm playing two roles, it feels like a little bit of a. Who am I right now? But getting that presentation and those slides and things together, and something like that we could discuss in our staff meeting in terms of like what that looks like, so that I could transfer that to a potential presentation in say like April for city council.
Yeah, cause I think by the end of March, we'll have all of our goals. Like from the recycling, compost and special materials all laid out. Well, you know, we may have to go back and talk about some of like the funding mechanisms behind them and stuff, but like the education campaigns. We should hopefully have that all fleshed out by then. And then we can then go out to the municipalities and say, hey, this plan is happening, this is coming, like these are what we've worked on so far, we would love feedback on that. And start heading to some of the township meetings and.
And yeah, getting out in front of West Traverse Township.
And we'll have.
We'll-
creative-
we'll- We'll sample with the like, the townships that we already work with, like curbside, for example, and that when you gain the momentum and then you choose like. Maybe some of the outliers or those that have been resistant to signing on to our solid waste ordinance or have banned the conversation of recycling from their meetings.
Right.
There's
It's all good.
there's townships in Emmet County that don't, that are not involved with the solid waste.
There are two.
There are two.
I didn't know that was an option.
I'm not entirely sure how that all played out or worked. Or affects.
They're very small and very rural and not very dense.
In my experience, usually the township doesn't have the ability to opt out of the solid waste plan with.
Are you talking about the solid waste plan or ordinance?
The previous solid waste ordinance, yeah, yeah.
Just one clarification, it's 2/3 approval.
2/3.
2/3, okay, thank you.
And then just a sort of a process procedure question.
Yeah.
How do you see the survey results informing the goals and the goal setting? Does one need to come before the other?
So we need to get over to you folks, the survey results that we have, and then we spent last week compiling all of that information into a readable Excel spreadsheet, and then we'll send that over.
But it's still.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I think that's,
Residential, you're gonna keep open, the results too.
so, and I would think that by July, we'll probably close the residential one, and then that way we can pull any other feedback that we've gotten from it and share that with you folks to help kind of guide any further conversations or adjustments that we need to make to those.
I'm a little confused. So you have the survey that you have right now for residential. And you wanna keep that open through July and. It's sort of informing your goals right now, but, and then. But like, okay, then you form your goals. Are you gonna have another survey? For feedback on the goal?
Yes, yeah, like a totally different survey, like,
When will that be released?
Well, if we're gonna talk about all of our different goals at the March meeting,
I would say, yeah,
I hope it would be. Could be
April.
shortly after that, we could
Yeah.
above the timeline of when we keep the residential one open, depending on when we get those goals solidified for the presentation.
so we,
Surveys out at the same time.
No, we would close the residential one when we have our draft, like our goals.
yeah, when we have the draft goals, we would close the residential
Okay.
ones. Cause then we'd be asking for input on the goals and objectives versus,
Good clarifying question.
yeah.
Got it.
I'm curious though, sorry, not to sidetrack the conversation, but I don't know if the second survey is necessary because. If the goals are reflective of what people said in the survey, it should be consistent, right? So unless there's a goal that's contradictory to what people said in the survey, then we want their feedback. I don't know, just to not over survey, you know,
Okay.
or confuse them
Yeah.
about whether.
There's a lot of surveys out right now.
There are.
I think some people have, blocked out taking surveys for a while, it's getting confusing, like the master plan for the county, they had a second survey just.
Yeah.
2 months ago, and that should be the last one, but still. It's just, nobody knows, it's.
I know what you're saying, I'm kind of like, did
Yeah,
I do that survey or?
Yeah, like, sometimes if the survey was put together correctly, it'll tell you you can't take this, you've already taken it,
Yeah.
but, it's just hard for a layperson to keep track.
And that's where I think like the one-on-one kind of relationships is beneficial, because you can walk somebody through something
Mhm.
when you're surveying. And people don't know what they don't know, so it's like you're kind of setting the stage and leading the way with your questions, because how you ask the question determines the answer always. So I feel like the public's influencing that, but we're also influencing the public, and like we are kind of like the leaders in this state in terms of diversion and opportunities. And people don't know like what else is possible, other than like, I want my yard waste and my food scraps collected in front of my house, like Ann Arbor does, or like I've seen out in San Francisco and Seattle and yada when I visit places, so. Getting our communities like closer to that, I don't know, I feel like there's plenty of opportunities for them to work both ways, and then once you're done, and then you're reporting out, this is what our plan is in the next
Yeah,
5 to 10.
Because once we report out, then there is the public comment period and that hearing, so they will have time to say. Nope, I've got concerns, I've got problems, you need to make revisions, so. Thanks, Stephanie, that kind of makes more sense.
I think you're trying to make it harder than it needs to be. So no, I think you're right, yeah, like, I think, yeah, you take the final survey results that influences your goals, and then you start the next process of going to the municipalities and putting it for open comment, but you could still go to the farmers markets and stuff and
Oh, yeah.
throughout the year, just with like, here's our draft goals, what do you think, just to get
Yeah.
awareness and.
That's kind of our purpose, is to take feedback and, we'll make a
Mhm.
decision, like, it's a valid concern or a good suggestion or whatever,
Yeah.
and just reject ones that are.
I do think though, you might wanna shop the goals around to local units of government, because some of them are gonna rely on them to implement at the local level. So if they're gonna vote the plan down because ultimately because they don't like the goals, it would be better to know that earlier than it is later.
So we have a quarterly newsletter that's been going out, and I have like draft recycling lists in there with bullet points. But we've been trying to communicate that with them. And I know at least City of Petoskey had, not really feedback, but just excitement about the newsletter, so it'll get more specific at those goals solidified. For the local units of government.
And Lindsay, that newsletter would be a tool that you could, like, quarterly, is that how it's called?
Yeah.
So that could be a tool for you to regularly go to the leadership and get on their agenda. Excellent, thank you.
All right,
Good.
well, I wanna make sure that do you have one more question, Stephanie?
Yeah, so do you guys have the survey on Facebook or anywhere?
Yes.
Okay. And is it somewhere on the Emmet County, I feel like the Emmet County main webpage, under like news, it should honestly have. A notice, like, please, like, surveys open, I don't know if that's possible, because a lot of people
Yeah.
don't delve into the website. They just see the front page,
So we've got it on our landing page, which is separate from the main county one, so I could put it on the max and I just put came from the news article, here it is. No, so I can ask you to do that.
Thanks.
It's a great idea, thank you.
Okay, anything else before we move on?
That was a good discussion.
That was, thank you, I appreciate the feedback, because it helps flesh out like what I need to be doing, So we are moving into the session materials recap, we have had 3 meetings now, we're on our third, we talked about disaster debris, reuse, C&D, HHW, textiles, shingles. We had a lot of presentations, you know, we had Manna come in, we had Chris Jolly from MSU, we had Hubbard County share information on reuse centers. So I'm not entirely, Kristen, was there anything we wanted to add about in that recap? Does anybody have any questions recap wise from those presentations? These were kind of the items that were discussed.
I will just add that, the Construction Demolition and Recycling Association, is an industry organization that you might want to consider, joining for the county. They have a shingle group. It's actually meeting, do you go to those?
Well, I get all the C and D newsletters, but I've never been with a shingle recycling group.
Yeah, so there's a group of people that are really actively working on shingles, and they have a meeting this afternoon that's focused on shingles, and some of the activity that's happening in the national level.
Can you send me the link?
Yeah.
This afternoon? Thank you.
I don't know, actually, you can attend because you're not, unless you're a member, it's a member,
Only?
but,
Does the membership cost money?
yeah.
We can look at it, Lindsay, later.
You can send me the link.
Or you can send it the recording out.
Yeah, we can watch the recording out.
I'm entertaining, becoming a member. That's helpful. I mean, I would want to know, is there anybody from Eagle who's being on a state, like, see, that's the cognitive disconnect in this with Eagle that I just like. Guys, like, them not understanding beneficial reuse and it's a market-driven activity. That's where we're gonna make a lot of inroads, no pun intended, for road construction and using, you know, shingles as aggregate. I mean, the fact that we had that presentation on reuse, and in Minnesota, at that, was it Hubbard County?
Hubbard County, yeah.
Thank you. At Hubbard County, they're grinding shingles right there, and like, they sell it to, like, the average citizen. Can you need a little fill material? Here's some ground shingles for you. I mean, like, I was like, whoa, this is possible, and maybe they have a different regulatory body that allows them to grind shingles on site, and they have the equipment to do so. We always have to subcontract for that kind of stuff, and we also don't get involved in speculative accumulation, so, I guess I was
Yeah, we
just
don't want
like,
anything sitting on site.
Yeah.
No.
yeah, we don't wanna, because of the stigma that persists in Michigan about piles of shingles in southern Michigan, ground piles of shingles that are like now a nuisance material, and like they, you know, blame the recyclers for that, but it's all about end markets, and the state's absence in these conversations in our region and nationally is yeah, frustrating. Yeah, it's frustrating. So,
And I know Tracy from Eagle will be back at our next meeting. They were doing a series of the Catalyst Communities webinars, and the last one in the series was today during our meeting. So she had sent me an email and said, I'm really sorry. So she said, moving forward, she intended on being virtual again or coming up in person and joining us. So
I love that format, how when they send out those Catalyst community webinars, there's like 4 of them. And you can just bam, 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 register for all 4 of them, get them on your calendar, and there they sit as a placeholder. That feels like the ease of engagement is very present there, so I appreciate that about them.
perfect. Stephanie, did you have anything to add for the recap, or are we good to kind of jump into some of the goal development?
No, we are all good. I will get us to our next slides.
So we are kind of moving into, like we did in the recycling chapters, we're gonna go through some special materials goals. Things we want to consider, the policy mechanisms that can help support each of the special materials. What types of additional funding we may need or mechanisms to support those. What types of education campaigns we're gonna need and outreach actions to support those. And just a reminder, we're doing SMARTY goals, so we want them to be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound, inclusive, and equitable as we're designing these. So the goal framework, we're gonna come up with the high-level statement of the desired outcome. We have created, I think there's like 15 of them to work through today. If you see one and you're like, I think that that's a terrible idea, please vocalize that. So we'll go through the goal, we'll do the high level statement of the desired outcome, and then we'll move into the targets or otherwise known, the objectives to measure the progress towards those outcomes. We'll go in through the implementation strategy, we'll look at specific steps to achieve those. So we're gonna look at the description of how minimum access requirements will be met, the description of resources needed, description of education and outreach, and then the timetable for implementation. And so what I'm hoping is once we have these goals formed, we can go back in staff wise and look at the timetable, because we may throw out some timetables today that they butt up with recycling goals or organic goals, and we wanna make sure over the next 5 years that we have these spread out enough that we're not jamming ourselves up in 2027 or 2028, so those will be taken into consideration too, so. So these, and I think there's 2 slides, but, so these were the types of goals that, Emmet County Recycling staff and RRS, we came up with together that kind of focused around the conversations that we had on C&D, HHW, reuse, textile shingles, disaster debris, so. Do you want me to read through all of these, or do we just wanna jump in to them, because I know we have, I think, like 15 slides of them, so. So first one for C&D was explore end market opportunities for shingles, C&D materials, for example, building materials reuse, and other hard to recycle, commercial, institutional, and industrial materials. And I think that first goal was a conversation that came up in one of our recycling meetings, and that was one of those goals that we had created during the recycling chapters and went, oh wait, we may need to move that over to special materials. So that's one that we've already basically fleshed out. But it was just being moved over to the special materials. Goal number 2 for C&D was identify partner organizations within the county and the region that could become partners for construction material redistribution. Goal number 3 for C&D was explore partnership opportunities with local and regional organizations working to prioritize building, moving, and deconstruction for reuse of material instead of disposal. And then if we move down into the HHW goals, we see explore expansion of HH drop-off days and being a licensed HHW hub, research opportunities to remove batteries from waste in the recycling stream, and expand/improve opportunities for safe collection and recovery. Emmet has a really great battery collection program, but there is always room for improvement and safety behind that with new technologies coming out. And then another one for HHW/reuse was develop an HHW reuse program that allows for the safe and effective redistribution of some household chemicals to reduce disposal costs and distribute usable materials back to the community members that need them. So that program used to exist at our facility during our household hazardous drop-off days. I know we had an issue with it, and so it kind of went away when some folks felt that they were entitled to maybe more material than what was available on the table and went into what's known as the hot zone.
So just tell the story.
I'm not sure what they called themselves, but I believe it was a group of, I think otherwise known as sovereign citizens, came in. And they just waltzed right into ERG's, ERG is our hazardous waste contractor. They waltzed right into their area and started picking through the gatewards of all of the sorted materials. And they were, it came almost to blows back there, and they were asked to leave, and they said, we are tax-paying citizens and we're entitled to anything here that we want. And it involved the sheriff's department.
What was that?
This was
2017, was it?
Yeah, maybe, it was a long time, quite a while ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a bad situation.
It was almost like the share table was the impetus for them to get back in the house zone without an appointment. They didn't like what was on the share table.
Yeah.
And so they were like, oh, but what's over here? Oh, we're taxpayers, we're entitled to get into our hot zone and start pulling materials from this, because this is a tax funded operation.
And they used their vehicles to block, so people couldn't get out, so we had people trapped back there in the hot zone that couldn't get out, because it's a one-way exit. And it was a complete bottleneck situation. It was a
So
bad situation.
But we did have the program at one time, so there may be a better way to
Yeah.
run that program if that's something that we wanna consider. And, you know, we can tailor that goal to research a reuse program for HHW. It doesn't have to be developed exactly, but I think if we've done it once.
Ottawa County, Genesee County, Kalamazoo County, they all have day-to-day HHW exchanges and reuse tables are part of that, and staff decide what falls under the auspice of reuse or not, or what has to be
Mhm.
disposed of with the contracted vendor, but
It could be a partner too, you don't have to think of it as something you have to take on yourself, but maybe there's a partner that would be, support the redistribution.
kind of like the pod disposal as well, like we had multi-governmental, that's the, like the proper disposal of medication, so we had law enforcement, tribal law enforcement, the tribe, the hospital, and the proper disposal of medicines, and so maybe it could be something similar to that. Cause now we have the infrastructure for that, so we don't have to do those combined with our HHW events, maybe that's an opportunity, Lily.
Might have to ask our DPW.
Maybe
board to
like
come help
Habitat
us.
for Humanity could manage the table during our events.
Yeah. Yeah, if we could partner with like, Habitat, they might be interested in partnering in that, so.
Or anyone who's running a food bank, and not that there's a, you don't want them in the same like area,
Mhm.
but people who need food probably also need food just for their home.
Sure.
So there might be a linkage there.
So,
It's good to have both.
It's
yeah,
almost like you have to create separate events, like you have a wish list of what people need.
yeah,
And that can come from like, say, a man or something. And then it can go to them and they can hand it off.
yeah.
If possible.
Or if Mana already collects that kind of information, if people are like, oh, do you offer these certain supplies? Those could be the types of items that we're asking to collect at that shared table to either redistribute back to Habitat or offer back to the community.
If somebody didn't want them, like if you had a bunch of cleaners and, like
So-
nobody took them and you store them and.
No, at the end of the event, if like for some reason nobody, either Habitat decided not to partner with us and we had just the exchange table and we were operating it, that material would all get loaded into ERG and be taken off site at the end of the day, because we legally can't keep it,
We don't store stuff.
so. Yeah, whatever wasn't taken from the swap or exchange table would
If
be,
we could keep it for like a while, or, but how, I mean, it would just be too complicated to.
Yeah, it's just not-
store, but- I was just thinking of having it on a separate, like, separate day or something, and it would avoid the hot zone even being there, and you just have a.
We have our household hazardous waste event scheduled for the year for 2026 already, so we could even start figuring out what the share table looks like to try it this year and try to partner with maybe a Habitat, or Kevin Donner from Mishko Ode considers himself the reuse king as a farmer. He's like always looking for opportunities to reuse and repurpose things, like maybe he would be willing to staff the table, or somebody from
yeah,
Habitat
and I
as well.
think that there's a big difference between something that has mercury in it versus your Clorox spray that you're wiping on your counters before you eat, and I don't know if there are different rules and regulations about storing, like if somebody were, so say we went out and we asked for, hey, we're looking for Clorox cleaner, we're looking for, wipes, Windex, those types of household chemicals that I don't know if I'd consider them a real hazard. Because when you're done with them, I mean, you're spraying those on the counters that you're eating off of and type of stuff, so. I don't know if there are different rules and regulations to what type of category of hazardous material.
Nail polish,
We get a lot of nail polish,
paints that are unopened.
Yeah. so, do we have any opinions about the C and D or other HHW goals? Just initially before we go in and kind of flesh those out,
I think 2 and 3 could be combined possibly.
2 and 3.
The second one, you're talking about partners for construction material redistribution. The third one, you're talking about partnerships for building, moving and deconstruction of those and reuse of the materials. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that those two, we might have talked about that yesterday a little bit, saying that all of those two could probably be combined.
Would number 3 be something that you'd want in the plan though? I mean, that would essentially come down to whoever was doing the project, right? Can you mandate some way that says, you have to take the time and move this rather than tear it down or deal?
No, and I think the whole idea behind that goal is just exploring partnership opportunities. So if there was a company like Preservation 49740 that wanted to focus on redistribution or deconstruction or moving a house instead of tearing it down, that I think would help meet that goal.
So to incentivize.
Yeah, to incentivize. It's not solely on our responsibility to be like, that house can't be torn down. You need to deconstruct it, piece by piece, and it needs to be source separated and then come into our facility. No, I don't. That's not the intent behind that goal. It's to,
That was my concern, because you have somebody that's gonna build a multi-million-dollar home, and you tell them they're gonna be delayed for 8 weeks, but they gotta move it, you might have a problem.
yeah.
I think goals too are like not necessarily policy implementable ordinances. I mean, they could eventually translate to
Mhm.
that. Further on, but these are just like goals that you set that don't necessarily have like teeth behind them, but it's like a carrot approach versus like any kind of stick at this juncture. Like you gotta set goals just to further the materials management process.
Yeah.
But whether they translate into ordinances remains, I mean, that's.
And the townships have more authority than the county in creating their ordinances. And so if, we set out these goals and townships are like, we really love that one, we want to make it an ordinance in our township, like a blight ordinance. They have more control in that, in their powers as local authority versus the county in ordinance development,
Mhm.
so.
And also we could be influencing the master plan process for Emmet County as well, because a lot of these things are planning related.
Would it, establishing a reuse center, like, we heard about at the.
Yeah, so there's.
Would that come under number one, like explore market opportunities?
No, so there's another slide, Stephanie, of more goals that we had talked about, and I wanted to see if there was any feedback on these before we go into actually fleshing them out, So if we wanna go to the next slide, this is where we talk about reuse goals, textiles, and multi-material, so reuse, we wanted to evaluate the economic, environmental, and social benefit of establishing a reuse component at the Emmet County Pleasant View Road Drop-Off Center or another location to increase diversion of many material types, potentially including building materials, textiles, household goods, and more. A second goal for reuse that we identified.
Hi, Stephanie.
Oh, no.
Sorry about that. Give me 1 second. I'm not sure what happened.
That's okay.
I was just approached, as we continue on, in terms of reuse and identifying reuse partners that are interested in collaborating with Emmett County. Miigwech Inc. out of the Alanson area, Meredith. She was interested, they're looking into this land that they have in Alanson. They're looking to build earthships. Now, earthships are not zoned in Emmett County, like, I don't think, what
Are they like in ground?
Okay, earthships are built from reused tires, glass bottles, and usually recycled content materials. There are several models in Michigan of earthships. But she was interested in partnering with Emmet County Recycling and seeing how they could divert tires, whole glass bottles, and certain building materials for the purpose of constructing earthships on site. Now, she can also go to construction and demolition waste job sites and talk to those contractors as well. There's a variety of ways of doing it, but this is a good example of somebody that in concept is interested in partnering with the transfer station and recycling center to develop a certain use and a certain volume for tires and other materials that are used in the construction of earthships. So she wants to go visit some of them in Michigan and then get a tour of our facility, kind of put themselves in the context of like, what does this look like? How many tires do you have on an inbound basis? And you're charging for them.
How many tires are they looking for?
Yeah, exactly. So yes, so that's a good example to me of partnering with an entity that's looking to explore, and we're not talking about a large volume of materials, we're talking about things that are already sourced, separated out of the waste stream, so that would be an example of a partnership that could potentially lead to something bigger.
That shits to the feet.
With that,
Shit for kids.
Earth chips or ships, like a ship.
ships, I'm sorry.
It's a completely
Ships.
sustainable home.
Yeah.
Like,
I read about it the first time in Mother Earth News back in 1990.
There's a bunch of them in like New Mexico.
Yeah, New Mexico is where they're really
Really.
And you're talking, Lindsay, about that kind of tying it in the second read.
Absolutely,
I
the
did
reuse, well, you're identifying reuse partners, like,
Yeah.
we're either approaching entities like a Habitat for Humanity that are already aggregating building materials, are already getting donations.
Mhm.
But they will tell you at Habitat that they, in their new location, they really struggle with, they have more of a reuse center for household goods, which sell quicker and help fundraise for them, versus building materials is a lot more difficult to get people to buy used building materials. But you can talk to a variety of contractors, like even Elisa's husband, Steve, like he, as a builder, has aggregated materials in his barn over years and decades of working on different job sites, and different contractors have different valuable materials on site because they see the value of reuse. Now, everybody's gonna be a little bit different. Also, I wanted to mention, because you know the reason, why are tires not allowed in landfills? They don't decompose, and they also like shift and like cause disruption in the cells, right? So that's why they're banned from landfills, other than.
Worried about shared liners and things like that.
Okay, so that's why you have to cut them up with a sawzall in order to dispose of them. And that's why we have a really pretty rigorous tire recycling economy in Michigan, is because they're banned from landfills.
We're in the circus every time.
Oh, really?
I'm thinking that's why you probably tend to see those kinds of houses in areas where the temperature is quite steady.
Yeah, and like that would be a consideration with construction, if you have something, a material that's gonna shift, and that's not viable for construction, but I'll let them figure it out.
That's on them.
That's on them.
So moving on, we have two textiles goals that we were looking at, exploring end markets in the surrounding regions and states for best practices and identify novel technologies that use textiles as feedstock for innovative reuse, recycling, and explore partnerships in end markets. I think that it is the state's goal or issue to find viable end markets for textiles, as I would say for shingles as well. So within those goals, I think that we could, have a target or an objective that says, support statewide policy that kind of places that responsibility on the state to develop those end markets. It's not solely our responsible. We're happy to collect that material, but we can't collect it if we don't have anywhere to send it. So, and then the material, well, we wanted to evaluate opportunities to conduct waste audit and estimate volumes of special materials generated in the county. So that really just kind of talks about sitting at our compactors at our holes and watching the materials that are coming in. From the waste haulers and just doing it in general waste audit. What kind of furniture are we taking in? What kind of scrap metal is ending up in the compactor? What kind of wood from construction and demolition? And just really understanding the economics behind that as we kind of progress forward and make movements to accept those different types of materials. Like what could that return on an investment be? So if it was something that we were capturing and not ending up in the landfill.
Who's gonna sit at the hole?
We'll put you at the hole, Lindsay Walker.
Just don't throw me in the hole.
We won't throw you in, but we'll put you there.
See, that's a pile of stuff.
As long as you respond and don't react.
I can do that.
No, I've never seen it.
You just laugh. It's the new Lindsay Walker down there, watch out.
Yeah, more powerful partners.
Next thing you know, there's a pile behind Lindsay that she's collected from the hole. She's like, oh, yeah, she'll take that. So,
By Friday, get it out of there, it's out of there by Friday.
you have a hard enough time with that already. So these are kind of the special materials of the goal development that we have been interested in. Do we have any feedback on these ones before we go in and start fleshing them out? No, okay. Then we can move forward. So, this was the first goal that we had talked about in the recycling chapter. It was the explore end market opportunities for shingles, C&D materials, and other hard to recycle commercial, institutional, and industrial materials. The targets that we came up with, begin planning for a reuse center by such date. create a list of hard to recycle materials from commercial, institutional, and industrial sectors, including, you know, things like shingles, drywall, dimensional lumber, hazardous materials, tires, asphalt, wood. Present a case study of Boulder's program to the MMPC. We did not do that,
Oh my gosh, the reuse center is to die for.
but we did talk about, we did see MSU's reuse center and Hubbard
Their
County.
charm, their charm.
So if we want to see something from Boulder County, I can pull that together and just send it to the committee.
How about a site visit to Boulder?
I would love that. So behind that, we have the implementation strategy and kind of like the action items. So we had talked about responsible parties, Emmet County, explore case studies and consider planning, options for building materials, reuse center. MMPC would be the provide advocacy at the state level as well. And then policy wise, the committee here would encourage state action to support development of end markets for those materials, kind of like we talked about just a few minutes ago with like shingles and textiles funding. I think if we were looking at something like a reuse center, there's always grant funding. You know, if the state can come up with some viable end markets for things like shingles, we can definitely apply for grant funding to purchase the equipment that we would need to help collect that. Education and outreach, I don't know if we need anything at this time for that one.
For the general public, I wouldn't think we need a lot, this is a lot more specialized than.
And then we didn't come up with a measurement other than, I think the targets themselves are kind of the measurements there. Do you have any input on that one?
I think something easy is like, in terms of education and outreach or creating those or revisiting those market opportunities in the absence of the state doing anything about that. Like, we could just go back to Payne and Dolan and Reeve Riley and be like, so what does this forecast look like for you for the future? Like, what would you need to resume grinding shingles for, not for hot mix asphalt, for like a different like aggregate or road-based application? Cause I think the hot mix asphalt industry it was like, this material isn't working like we thought it would. And then, like, if you talk to Brian Gutowski about Red School Road, which is out in Levering, I think.
Red School's just outside of Brutus.
Okay, outside of Brutus,
Yeah,
so,
between Brutus.
so they did a hot mix asphalt with recycled asphalt shingles, ROS, and then HMA. And it caused spalling, so immediately the engineers were like, it was the recycled materials to blame for that. So it's like that stigma, once again, of like something that failed, and it was because, you know, engineers aren't the most creative people, and they like what's proven time and time again, and it's like wash, rinse, repeat. So changing the stigma of like how you use those applications, I mean, that's also not up to us to figure out, to hear back from the industry about like what works and what doesn't, and where are the opportunities. Because MDOT doesn't have any specs that say you get different points for your bid if you use recycled content materials generated locally. That's the kind of incentives that we need, but we need the engineers to be developing stuff that really works and take it out of like Michigan Tech and like the ivory tower of like research and development.
I know.
And put it into real world applications.
No, there was a county in Michigan that just used tires, shredded tires in their,
Yep.
in their road project, and that they're gonna study it for the next 5 years to see, but it had promising results, so maybe there'll be a new end market for tires and,
Yeah.
you know, our roads won't crack so bad. Okay.
And that's where kind of like next cycle comes in. The state road commission uses Michigan Tech as their.
Mhm.
As their ivory tower of research and development.
Maybe something to look into too, instead of looking at the asphalt. And if it's not working out engineering wise, the asphalt's not up in quality or whatever, doing for structural fill, but. You know, you can't go to the Reeve and Rileys and the Elmers and everywhere in the world that are selling aggregate for subgrade, because they're not gonna be. They're gonna be hard pressed to get them to try to use something that they're not selling, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So if
Yeah.
You said to like Michigan Tech or something and get that proven that it works for a subgrade aggregate instead of that.
Exactly.
The end market is a cheaper material that's ground up that you could use instead of an aggregate.
And then the Emmet County Road Commission,
Yes, for subgrade instead of final circuit.
right, and then like the Emmet County Road Commissions and the MDOTs of the world are saying like, okay, we're gonna write into our specs that if you include recycled content for this application, then you're graded at a different level, and that's up to the cities to write those specs into there. Same thing with the use of compost for the replanting and reseeding of a development.
Maybe used for any other purposes other than roads for vehicles, like for trails. Or non-motorized trails.
Yeah, repaving of our bike path, we spend about $100,000 every year in the city of Pulaski to repave certain sections. And if we could get in the spec something that was like tire derived aggregate to be part of that mix for the hot mix asphalt, and it's the city that drives that in their specs, but they're not gonna do anything that's not proven, tried and tested.
Yeah. Or like city playgrounds.
Yeah.
The shredded tire for the,
Yeah, yeah.
okay,
So the thing, the dates that we put in, almost all the stuff will be after the plan is approved, like after July of
yeah, so
27.
all of the dates will be like after July of 2027
Yeah.
through the next 5
Except for
years.
some of them like presenting,
And
that we could do that.
And so and it might be easier once we have the goals fleshed out, to have our staff go in and map out the dates and then present them to you this way and be like, okay, so these are how many goals we have in 2027, how many in 2028, this many in twenty
Like
twenty-nine.
that's what would drive it, is like,
Yeah.
like what special funding is available, like to hire a new
Yeah.
staff researcher. Or, what you can do right now with staff capabilities and all that, which, you guys would need to kind of tell us
Yeah.
that.
Well, and yeah, so and with the funding and like in the dates, we
Yeah.
staff wise can really flesh those out. I think the really helpful part right now is coming up with the goals themselves and then getting your feedback on just kind of like the objectives and targets that we want to hit as we flesh these out. Cause Eagle's pretty consistent in their funding and we have a pretty good grasp on state funding opportunities, local funding opportunities, so we can go in and kind of fill in those areas. And
You
I think
also want to, sorry, you also want to set the dates so that you, on a year-to-year basis, to continue to get the Eagle, MMP funding, you have to be able to show you're making progress, so. You don't want to make the date too soon, then you can't possibly make progress in that.
achievement, I think.
Yeah.
The next cycle is like in the first incarnation of next cycle back in 2023, did they start it? Next cycle Michigan, they had a roads track, and so they did make a lot of inroads with like tire derived aggregate, the use of chrome rubber on roads and paths. And there was, American Classic was getting into shingle recycling, but because there were no end markets for it, that kind of died, and they stopped doing the roads track, but they're gonna reintroduce something in the fall of this year. That's something similar and parallel to those really heavy materials, cause when we were recycling them between 2010 and 2025. It was over, and we were doing it seasonally, like April to November, the roofing season, which from year to year that can change. It was over, 2,000 tons, which makes a huge difference in our diversion numbers as a county. Dream on. Dream, baby, dream.
Do we have any other questions on goal 1 or are we good to move to goal 2? Alright. So goal 2 is identify partner organizations within the county and the region that could become partners for construction material redistribution. Stephanie, do you want to add in goal 3 on this one too? And we can combine these right here, I think.
Yeah.
Yes, let me do that now.
I think that, yeah, we can flesh that out and get them combined. Okay, and so then goal 3 was explore partnership opportunities with local and regional organizations working to prioritize building, moving, and deconstruction for reuse of material instead of disposal. So I think we can, and we don't have to do that right here, but we'll know that we wanna combine those two and make it sound a little more put together then.
Yeah, I like it. Thank you for that suggestion, because anytime you can consolidate and like, yeah, bring together the wisdom, so it's still very lofty and rigorous, but I love it.
Less is more sometimes.
I agree, and sometimes we like to do far more than we know what we're doing. So what types of targets do we wanna include in these objectives? Are we looking for, you know, identifying a couple of organizations, like 3 of them? Are we looking just to do research behind this?
Targets are what, goal targets, like measurable, how many targets?
So the SMART goals include, you want it to be measurable, achievable, we need it to be time bound, specific. So the targets behind these are the objectives. So if we don't have any objectives behind this one, other than to say that this is the goal, I think that that's okay too. You know, if we wanna not create, you know, a list of objectives, we can say, you know, this is just one of the overarching goals and we really wanna see that. You know, we're taking time to research and work on creating partner organizations. You know, one of the goals that we had talked about that we didn't include was creating like an advisory committee. That could be something that comes out of one of these goals, would be to, you know, create an advisory committee that, you know, checks in with the MMPC and helps guide conversations on C&D and where we wanna go in the next 10 years. So,
I would say also, like, where does the state come in here? And I think at all touch points, so like. They should be driving the conversation. There should be a beneficial reuse specialist. And I think talking to Rhonda Hoyer about that at Eagle, because she was the one that was in charge of kind of like beneficial reuse 10 years ago. Where does that come in terms of their staffing mechanism? Because they've got themselves spread all over the state, and we've seen the recent hierarchy of Eagle and like their flow chart of who's who and where materials management planning falls under there. I would hope that there's gonna be a hire for a beneficial reuse specialist throughout the state with materials management planning. So
yeah.
leaning back on the state for like,
Yeah, but I don't know how we can make that a target though, other than to say that we're gonna support the state in their exploration of beneficial reuse.
encourage and
Yeah,
support,
to encourage and support and,
lobby.
I would say a goal would probably be communication, right? I mean, whoever's doing this work gonna have to have somebody, some point of contact, you know. I would say it's our goal should be giving somebody a road to follow, you know, if they wanna do a special material, you know, if they wanna save a home or whatever, what's the channels that they have to go through? What person would start that road for them? Because, I mean, you can't tell people they're gonna do it, but you can point them in a direction.
yeah.
And I would say that I would say give the opportunity to the person doing it, but we have to put something in place for that individual to follow that road.
Mhm. And that may come from like the exploration and the creation of an advisory committee that would kind of, you know, the MMPC could say, okay, this is one of the goals. Now, subcommittee, I need you to go out and kind of flesh out those opportunities to guide folks in the right direction.
So I would think of like, so partnership opportunities, so like Habitat for Humanity, the state of Michigan, planning and zoning and building resources.
Since there's only one house moving company in the area.
Richie's, perfect, they're a great partnership. Richie's.
Well, and when you're moving houses,
Never done.
you also have to work with the local utilities because they gotta move power lines. And if they, you know, sometimes they're like, we're not moving that power line across the road so that you can get this
City
house.
of Petoskey, 75% underground, boys and girls. Yes, you're right. Also other opportunities like, couldn't we lean into like the Fords at Evening Star Joinery? He sits on the board of the Petoskey Harbor Springs Area Community Foundation, like, he's an invested partner in our community, like, hey, Fords, like, Evening Star Joinery, really high-end homes. Would you sit on this advisory board for what it looks like for construction and demolition waste recovery and opportunities? in that regard. Paving companies, if we're talking about C&D, shingle recovery for hot mix asphalt, Bannon Doyle and Reeve Riley.
Funding for this one, I'm not entirely sure that it's needed if we're just like, kind of exploring these opportunities. But education and outreach, I instantly think of, kind of going back to what Chris just said, like pointing people in the right direction. Do we have a one pager that is created out of this that, you can give out to the construction companies or families that are interested in moving homes or building homes, or provide it to the preservation 49740 so that, they have that as like educational material, something that lives on the website. So people that are interested in, moving a home or deconstruction, there's some sort of education that can be given to them.
Stephanie, can we also add a couple of other entities like LTBB, Little Traverse Bay Band's planner, Amanda Swiss? Her husband also owns a construction company. Like all of these people are very connected. Our Emmet County Road Commission is part in terms of research partnership opportunities as well.
Would Bark, I know they're not like one to look for like gold standard, but aren't they kind of involved in something like this?
Yeah, they're doing deconstruction and reuse and building tiny homes. So Bark is Bay Area Recycling for Communities. That's our mattress recycler, and Caliva and Traverse City. Thank you.
I talked to
Don't
Andy
put your
today.
hands today.
That's the best. Thanks, ALEVA. Not that good.
Good job, Stephanie. Good job, Stephanie Square.
Yeah, a sneak out.
Is it? Yeah. Okay. And Grand Traverse.
There's-
One Little Traverse Bay Bands of Wadawa Indians, planner.
There's some organizations that advocate for like affordable housing.
Mhm.
Oh, there's the Harbor Area Residential Trust, which is a new thing that, where there's some other housing north or I don't know.
Investment, there's several different
Harbor Inc.
funding organizations that education could be provided to, so it sits on their websites and offers assistance.
Looks like we found our point of contact, not saying.
I know, so many relationships.
Sounds like Lindsay will be creating the subcommittee.
I think she volunteered.
My life.
I don't know if there's any real measurements that we need to achieve behind this one. And anything that we don't flesh out today, I'm a kind of recycling myself, will flesh out the details to present at the March meeting.
You might wanna think about some kind of a hierarchy, so how did, if you do the advisory committee, how does my advisory committee sort of sit among, different organizations, their advisory, link to them and see. But, assigning roles and responsibilities and expectations would be a measurement to actually formalize it. And I was thinking funding too, I don't think that there's a big funding need for it, but specifying in the goal that any funding for meeting expenses or refreshments or whatever for a group of people to get together would come from your Eagle MMP funds. Just so that as you move forward, what you need to commit to in your funding.
Food and snacks and
Snacks. This is a volunteer based.
MMP is paying for snacks.
County was clear on that. So do you, if you all want snacks at the next meeting, just want, I'll make it happen.
We'll make them ourselves.
We'll call our good friends at Roasted House.
All right.
All right, on to the next one. So goal 4, explore expansion of HHW drop-off days and being a licensed HHW hub.
HHW, for everybody that doesn't know or does know, it's household hazardous waste. Okay, thanks. We have so many acronyms.
So many acronyms, sorry, Darcy. Yeah, if you hear an acronym that you're not familiar with, please let us know.
What is being a licensed hub involved? What's that all about?
So
That'd be licensed through the state of Michigan with a whole new building and a lot more employees and a whole lot of accreditation behind all of it.
So it sounds like
When you're
that's,
dealing with chemicals, there's a lot
Yeah.
involved.
Just,
There's
you
huge.
like to mix some things together.
Yeah, acids and bases, don't get me going.
so that makes it sound like that's
One
like
building for acids, one for
maybe
bases.
not a high priority.
And if we don't love this as a goal, we can always nix this one and say, you know, maybe we just wanna explore HHW like funding opportunities.
Right.
Policy for the state, looking at extended producer responsibility, how are these companies that are creating these chemicals not being held responsible for the safe disposal of these? So we could come up with a resolution as the committee, you know, if we say we want a goal to just be like, hey, we're gonna support the state when they come up with some statewide policy, EPR around HHW, or continue looking at funding opportunities, encourage the state, you know, they have tire grants, why don't they have an HHW grant to help fund these? Because by law, each county is required to have an HHW program. But realistically, a lot of counties don't, because when we host an event, each event costs roughly $30,000. We spend a ton of money running those events. It's on average, I think, what, $100 a car these days? And it's free for residents. We don't charge Emmet County residents to participate.
If we were magically a licensed pub, what benefit would that be over what's happening now?
Ease of access for the residents.
Give ease of access.
All the time.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure that, yeah.
This is one that you might wanna look at your survey results and see if it's really being driven by residents. And if residents want it, then, you know, it, for.
Yeah.
You don't be bold to exploring it and.
Yeah.
What the costs are.
And the first rollout of our residential survey was at our HHW event, so like it was very focused on what people need, so there will be some good answers in there.
Yeah, HHW is not cheap, and it's something that we obviously need to provide to our residents. If that means in the future it's not free, you know, then what happens, you know, I'd hate to see someone, because we get the phone calls once in a while, well, I can't get rid of this right now, I'm gonna go out and look to dump it, and
Yeah.
we don't want that to happen either. We will still wanna maintain best practices around HHW and it's safe disposal.
So as an example, and it's not the perfect example, but it's the one that I was familiar with, having come from Kent County, because Kent County has a very robust HHW program, but they're also responsible for the closure of landfills. Which, Emmet County would be as well, and then, long-term responsibility for hazardous landfills that have been deemed that by EPA. Kent County implemented that countywide ordinance that collects a fee on all waste generated, and that pays for their hazardous waste program. So there are some model mechanisms that you could explore in order to pay for the growing cost of HHW program.
And because we're a pay-as-you-throw program and government doesn't pay for garbage in Emmet County in any capacity, how would you implement the fee? Is it through through an ordinance that's on the private sector haulers? Okay.
So Stephanie, I don't know if we want one of the targets to just be, explore funding mechanisms.
And, you know, Kalamazoo County does it very differently,
Kalamazoo.
Kalamazoo.
Oh, Kalamazoo, sorry.
So there's just a little more patchworky and there's a lot that you could learn from them about what's not working about their patchworky funding mechanism. But there are some models out there that you could learn about and see if it works or if you need something totally different.
And I think one of the benefits that both of those counties see is they're a lot closer to ERG. I think, isn't ERG
They're in Ypsilanti, so they're on the other side.
other side?
But they're still a lot closer than we are.
I guess what a goal for the HHW would be, I guess, is the goal to try to build a program, because I mean, essentially right now you do the.
No, because
Here,
we have a really robust HHW program to begin with. I think the intent behind this is to, how do we improve it at this point, make it better? Make it so that we're not spending $100,000 a year also.
Hey, folks in the room, I'm not sure if you can hear me, but I've lost audio. from you guys. I cannot hear you anymore.
Stephanie, can you hear us now?
Yes, I can hear you.
I don't know what happened. The owl shut off there for a second, it looks like, and.
On my computer every time I'm doing.
That's somebody else.
See, I know you mean like this.
Somebody come in back here. Okay.
I would say maybe just put a pin in this one until we can look at the survey results, like that will help us, the clearer path. Perfect. The general health is.
The regional HHW.
This-
I was like, so I'm looking at you.
Where you wanna look at other county surveys as well.
Yeah,
So look at, Charlevoix.
Charlevoix has a very robust HHW program.
What are they looking, like,
Yeah.
I don't know, just keep in mind other communities' plans and feedback.
Mhm.
So,
Does Charlotte charge for theirs?
I don't think so.
I don't think
I
so.
think it's free for
I
us.
know they've changed their format. You can't see when their dates are. You have to like email them and confirm you're a resident before they tell you. That was the last thing I saw on their website.
So they're confirming this.
They must have people crashing theirs too.
Potentially.
And they do one in Boyne City and then they do one in Charlotte.
And they do 2 days at a time.
Green
Okay,
Friday.
so
has
June
quite a
to
few.
Friday and Saturday, September, Friday and Saturday.
And I think Antrim has a pretty,
Antrim got a big one.
a pretty nice HHW program too. And I think theirs is ran through the conservation district, if I'm not wrong, because that's the flyer
I think
that's provided comes from the conservation district.
Maybe look at it, see what they do to control costs and if
Yeah,
they're more successful in certain areas.
You have your HHW roundtables. Are they communities that are all over Michigan? Is there an opportunity?
Yeah, they're from all over Michigan, mostly not,
They're not our neighbors necessarily, but that might be, there's a list.
so maybe when we go down to get your recertification, do you have to do that every year?
I have to do it.
Maybe you
And
could
what
ask
is it?
about what the other programs are doing for their funding mechanisms.
What month is that?
I know a lot of them charge
Yeah.
by vehicle.
Right, or they have a special millage to
I
pay
know,
for
like-
that.
The. Is it Washtenaw that just opened up there? Big,
Yeah, they have it at Arbor Hills.
they,
landfill.
yeah, they have, obviously, they're open daily now, so
Yeah.
they weigh and charge as cars are coming through. They put everything on a cart and weigh it and charge right there.
Okay.
But yeah.
Or the listserv, I'm sure there's a listserv, right? Big email distribution list
Oh.
that goes around for people with questions.
It's just nice. Yeah.
Yeah, that may be worth asking about funding.
Or we could even pass. Like if we could ID each resident as they're coming through and then somehow have a system with the municipalities and townships. That are corresponding and like through the voucher system, maybe there's a way. To charge the municipality or the township as a partner. So that we could fund HHW, it would require. Checking IDs and then. You invoice the township based on the resident. For those costs.
That's sort of the system that Kalamazoo has,
Okay,
but it's very confusing for people to use because.
because not all townships or municipalities are signing on.
Yeah, people have the intention, they want to participate, but if their municipality hasn't agreed to pay the costs. Then it puts Kalamazoo in a bad spot because they have to say, either you have to pay us or you have to go away.
You need to go to your township meeting to learn about their HHW.
I think ERG actually has a very similar charging system when entities come in, because they have different contracts with different communities. So each one, when someone comes in, they have to find out what community they're coming in from to figure out how that's gonna be charged. That it was a really patchwork-y system.
Because I can tell you, other than, and I'll just say this from a municipal perspective, other than due to the ice storm and the cost of. Collecting trees and grinding trees, we don't expend our rubbish. Budget every year, so it just rolls over into the next fiscal year. So the city of Petoskey in this context has capacity to spend more money and a lot more money from our enterprise fund to rubbish cleanup.
Mm.
That includes the collection of yard waste with contracted with GFL at the curb. The spring cleanup days.
Yeah, what if it,
We don't
like,
do
you
a
know, could
voucher
look at
system.
something like a system like a cleanup day, like, you know, if the city wants to pay for the HHW day for their residents, they would treat it like a cleanup day.
Did you hear her say you'd be charged more?
That is not.
Only going to be designated and registered state.
Okay, well, I think we can spend some time fleshing this one out, we'll move forward, because we only have a half hour left and. So goal number 5 was research opportunities to remove batteries from the waste and recycling stream and expand and improve opportunities for safe collection and recovery. No, I don't know if you have any specific, because you kind of manage our battery program.
Yeah, there's some new technology, but it's like very new. I think there's only like 1 or 2 offerings and
Okay.
again, very, very new.
Yeah.
So like the jury's out on how well it works. I do have 2 battery meetings this month, one with the EPA and one with RRS, right? Or you got
It's a work group. Morgan reached out to us and
Yeah.
And there's gonna be a battery track for next cycle as well coming in, so.
Oh.
Hope I didn't have those meetings as well.
So,
We would love to.
I think more to come, it just feels like the technology is really new, but I have my ear to the ground, on all of the different battery related articles in the waste industry.
And also from the waste haulers and landfill operators perspective, where is your industry at with lithium batteries and safety and like investment in?
It's been a whole new undertaking. The lithium batteries are horrible. We can't control when it comes in a truckload, but they're spontaneously combusting, we started all new fire programs to just for the lithium batteries.
And those batteries come in everything.
Yeah.
Have you guys heard anything about more technology and like not the X-ray stuff, but I can't remember the name of the company.
Not really on site. I've done some research. There's some companies, and I think it was in Nebraska. I may have that wrong, but there was a company they're starting to take the lithium batteries and actually extracting the metals out of them and reusing them. I don't know how feasible it is, not what the cost is to do it, because it's so far away, and that, I mean, it's, like I said, kind of a new problem in an old world kind of thing.
We gotta figure out how to separate them first.
There's a company that does it, they take them in and they crush them down, we'll pull the gold out and the copper
Well,
out.
I need to separate the batteries from
Yeah.
the trash.
Yeah, it has to be, essentially sort of separated at the consumer, I mean, once it gets to us, it's. To find a battery in a toothbrush is pretty rough, it's pretty tough, you know.
Yeah.
So under policy, you could advocate for extended producer responsibility at the state level. Totally.
That's a great
It seemed like maybe what's happening this year and then.
I hope so. The EPA work group hasn't met in like a year, so this is exciting that they finally said, hey, we're meeting again.
Alan, what about from the waste management's perspective, just similar trajectory of trying to mitigate the fire hazards of
A
lithium?
lot of customer outreach, you know, the fires that we've had, landfill lines or in the trucks. You know, we have to reach out to those people, and to our benefit, we have cameras and stuff that can help us isolate who it could be from and find the root cause, but. Just a lot of customer interaction, talk with them and engagement with our drivers, but, you know, it's all, anyone can throw something in there that could just spontaneously burst, you know. If it grounds against a truck and gets compacted, you lose that truck in minutes, so. It's an ongoing battle.
Yeah,
Are your 2 companies doing anything at the corporate level that Emmet County could kind of grab onto and could you collaborate from facilities and transportation and just general public value?
I've made a note, we do have GFL does have a hazardous waste cleanup program and people in place for doing that's not necessarily in Northern Michigan, but I did make a note of that to reach out to see if there is something available for hazardous waste, to reach out to see if there's maybe a plan and program that is implemented somewhere else that could be beneficial here. I know there's nothing in Northern Michigan right now, but we do have on the Detroit, Grand Rapids market, Indiana, Ohio.
So Stephanie, can you hear that both GFL and Waste Management have education outreach and opportunities from a corporate level to share with us? My voice travels.
Yes. You
Thank
are
you,
very good
Deborah.
at projecting.
Where is Waste Management's corporate offices located? Houston? And you're in Miami Beach now. From Toronto to Miami, good job, guys.
Look and move. Yeah. Don't wanna go to Toronto.
Yeah, we do a battery recycling program that's by mail. So, we provide kits to any of our customers, you know, that wanna reach out, and it's like prepaid mailers, buckets and things like that, so.
Is that for residents or commercial?
It's for anyone that goes on and.
But so that's not up here though, you don't offer that.
No,
service up
I
here.
do, yeah.
Could we partner, like share that information on, like on our website and say, hey, Waste Management, does GFL offer anything like that, like battery collection kits?
I believe so, because I wanna do a little more digging.
Okay,
Yeah, we have what's called battery tracker, lamp tracker, so
Yeah.
fluorescent bulbs, all that.
yeah, cause
Cycle, they come with, kits where you can send bulbs in the mail, or they're not gonna be broken. The mercury's contained, and things like
Yeah,
that, so.
so if we can share that type of resource on our website under the haulers page, that's really helpful, because, we give out coffee cans,
Repurposed.
That's right.
and they work perfect.
Yeah,
So well.
no, well, tell us, for those people that maybe don't know what Emmet County has, what's our collection system look like and processing?
Yeah, we have 8 public hosted sites, one including the DOC, the drop-off center, and then 7 community partners. Where they host battery buckets so that residents can drop off household, and then we ask them to separate the lithium and take the ends. Then Natalie goes out once a week or so and collects those, bring back, and we just sort out all the non-batteries. And we have, oh my god. I don't know.
Yeah, waste is a whole different genre.
No, 5-gallon buckets. Plastic.
And then we do also have battery kits that we put together from an Eagle grant. I was noticing, like, as I was digging through batteries, that people could use a resource to have like a container to store their batteries, some education, the tape, the plastic bags for any of the corroded batteries. So we put a kit together with all of that to give to residents, so they have something they can bring, tip, and then have it back at home, keep reusing that kit for battery recycling. So it's got our graphics and some education on the outside of the bag and on the buckets.
Those are super popular.
They're so cute too.
People really like them. They work well.
And then automotive batteries are separated out at the hole. It's free to recycle your automotive batteries, and then we sell those to AML and Elmira. And then Gina, in the MRF, there's a recovery for batteries as well, as the guys are seeing a lot of hazardous materials come over the line.
5-gallon buckets come off the line every day.
Okay.
And I think, and then we, through that same education Eagle grant, we were able to invest in lithium, fire kits. So we now have those up on the processing lines. We were able to invest in some lithium, fire extinguishers, because those require a specific fire extinguisher.
Right.
So I think another target is, just to keep researching best practices around battery safety, collection and processing, because I think it changes so fast too, like with the new technologies coming out. So just, keeping up to date on those, which Noelle is very on top of.
I have another question. So the Elmira fire that happened in the fall, was that due to a lithium battery? Absolutely. Okay, so there you go.
And I'm assuming an embedded lithium battery, that's the hardest part. Like, the batteries are all different shapes and sizes into any sort of material. They're in your kids' Lego shoes. I mean, what do you do for those?
We run into them constantly in landfill, compactor run over something, it just,
Yeah.
it's not a smoldering fire, it goes from.
No, it's like 1900 degrees immediately.
Scary.
And it's like 0.00012 seconds that it takes to go from like
Yeah,
to 1200 degrees.
Yeah, but regular batteries were their own problem back in the past, but These are just holding free. Which,
We don't go over there until you got a
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
And what do they say, the average person has about three
We have like-
lithium batteries on them?
Oh, I think it's more than that.
Wasn't it like 7?
Because it's your key fob, your watch, your phone, your iPhone, your laptop. I mean, anything. I think 5 or 7 is the standard.
Okay.
Do you all have a fire rover at Emmer?
No, those are expensive.
Those are, well, I mean, that if
And then
if mitigation, right,
Yeah.
on that end is important to you, that can be a goal.
Shrews are fire rubber.
Sure.
There's something, our little Rogers are fire rubber.
That's it, yeah, they kind of got the market. So,
yeah,
yeah,
they're the ones that always have the recording.
yeah, he's great.
Yeah.
There's name one.
Wow.
That was a good one. That was a good conversation.
I like that one.
Yeah.
All right.
More HHW?
No, I think that was the one for HHW, the last 2. All right, goal number 6. Oh, I lied, there was one more. And I think we can. Do we wanna flesh this one out anymore? I know we kind of talked about it at the beginning of the meeting, develop, I don't know if we wanna say develop, but if we wanna say research. An HHW reuse program that allows for the safe and effective redistribution of some household chemicals. To reduce disposal costs and distribute usable products back to the community members that we need them. I think one of the targets that we talked about was, defining partners in the community like Habitat for Humanity or MANA that would be interested in maybe hosting the table or partnering with us during the events. Funding, I think that, or underneath policy, we are still looking at advocacy statewide, to offer some sort of funding for HHW programs that the counties are managing because of how expensive they are.
Who's got a share table at their HHW events or permanent sites in the state of Michigan? Who are demonstrating kind of like best practices, who was it working for and how do they do it?
Yeah, and I know that like we've had a community foundation grant before for our HHW program. If we were to bring back the share table, maybe that's something that they would be interested in helping fund. It creates a safe disposal and gets the material back into the community. They may be interested in, that type of partnership. So funding, I would think like local grants, and advocating for statewide grant because.
Natalie, what are our dates this year? Do you have that little flyer right there at your desk?
June 17th and August
Yeah.
22nd. Locked away.
August what?
22nd?
Oh, so we're doing it one later.
Earlier.
Earlier.
We usually, because we're not doing a September event.
Oh, June and August.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, we heard a lot from our Bayview resident this last year about how we're all gone by the time we have this, and our other one was too soon, so we moved up the date when they gave us availability. To hopefully capture more of that population.
So if there was a reuse center established like for construction materials or something, because these materials go like, there's
Like a
always,
household
there's always
kitchen.
staff checking people in and see what kind of stuff they have.
Really careful, I think certain scrubbing bubbles, okay, that's not gonna,
Right.
I don't think that's gonna break the bank.
Yeah.
Turtle wax automotive stuff, okay, that can, elemental mercury, probably
Yeah.
not, so we just have to be really careful of what we put out there. A lot of what we see is, lawn chemicals, not liquid, but like,
Fertilizer.
yeah, fertilizer, the
Yeah.
bags of brand new fertilizer that never got opened.
Yeah.
Something that, that's a heck of a catalyst for a fire. So we'd have to maybe consider, how we're storing that or if that's something that we would hang on to, but there's a lot of stuff that does come across that's really not that.
It seems like if there was, if there was a reuse center.
Yeah.
Big plan, but there's always staff or volunteers checking people in and saying like, well, what do you have, paint or, oil or whatever, and, you could vet what they have and say, oh, this stuff, go to station 1 and drop this and this off and then continue on and And, you
There are a
know,
lot of paints and stuff that are not technically flammable. I mean, if it says combustible or flammable, you can forget it. We're not hang on to something like that, but there's a lot of
I think
combination
this
paints out there
can
that's kind of like latex, but
somewhat
not.
dovetail with the
Outdoor.
concept of a reuse center.
Yeah.
There's a little overlap there.
The product for the home.
Yeah.
And
And
then
there's
there's try to use furniture.
Yeah.
Then you get paint too. I don't know.
There's certain things that are covered, the costs are covered, so NDR pays for all the fertilizers, insecticides, pesticides, anything agricultural related, we do get reimbursed for.
Up to seven thousand.
Pesticides.
Oh, okay, so there's a cap on that.
Yeah.
Do we reach the cap usually every year?
So for the whole year, is that for each event?
Full year.
Okay.
So that is something that is subsidized by the state of Michigan for proper disposal.
Yes.
But there's the other things that are not.
Yeah.
Like oil-based paint.
Correct.
Which we get a lot of.
Yeah. Okay. I don't really think I have anything for like education and outreach right now on that one,
I
besides, you
feel
know,
like some of that will, like, as we solidify it, like, get more detailed, but that'll kind of come
come
to
after.
fruition.
And then also like considering going back to the county. Government in terms of like when they've had ARPA funds flow in from the federal government, we've been able to apply for small grants for like the new Baylor. There's been other funding mechanisms, but we take such pride in being self-sustaining and. Our elected officials depend on us to remain self-sustaining, but there might be a time in the context of materials management planning where we go to the county and we say, in order to expand HHW collection, we've seen an increase in demand. So you make a business case context for, are there general funds available in the year 2028 for hazardous waste collection and expansion of our program to expand it to more days or more opportunities? Yeah,
That would be when we start charging for HHW.
Yeah, that was waiting for it.
okay. Well, I mean, there always has to be the opportunity for an ask, regardless if you get rejected or not. There's,
Yeah.
you're building a business case study for like, we can't carry this weight alone. Is there any other opportunities besides the grants that we apply for and looking to charge for it directly to help cover our costs?
And we were very fortunate with the ARPA funds that we did receive.
Of
for
course,
Our Baylor.
it's an awesome opportunity.
That was
But those
a
are.
lot of money.
Any money we get from the state in our region or from the federal government is few and far between, because we're just looked at as wealthy and we're expected to like. Do it on our own.
No, advocate of successful, not motivation.
Thank you, success.
So we have 10 minutes left, so let's keep moving here. On the agenda, though, I do want to note that we had work program, upcoming focus areas, which I kind of talked about at the beginning of the meeting, so if we don't touch on that, we won't need, I don't think, 10 minutes, 15 minutes for that, so we kind of fleshed that out when we talked about the April meeting, which was nice. So goal 7, evaluate the economic, environmental, and social benefit of establishing a reuse component at the Emmet County's Pleasant View Road drop-off center or another location to increase diversion of many material types, potentially including building materials, textiles, household goods, and more. So I think there's a lot that goes into, all of this, and so I think like one of the main targets is going to be, you know, kind of doing a study, figuring out, what an economic study looks like. The site is going to have to be evaluated, and this year we're doing an engineering study on site anyway, so, we might be able to loop a little bit into that and just say, hey, you know, we're thinking about adding a building here when we're looking at the traffic flow, so, to keep that in mind, so that way we're not doing all of this re-engineering and then going, guess what, surprise, we want to add another building on site, so.
And do we have to use a certain engineering firm
No.
as a county entity? So we have flexibility, so that would be bringing in like other specialists, and like how do you design a flow study for a transfer station, super drop-off center? So capital improvement plan and the study, and then using our resources throughout Michigan to be like, okay, who designed what facility and how would they grade or not?
Yeah,
Cause I don't think like, we've used Northwest Design Group and now it's
yeah.
And I don't know if they are really the best engineering firm, they're like the local one, and then.
And then the county uses SIDOC. So SIDOC, what would happen is like, we would lean on SIDOC to help create the RFP. To create the ask for what we're looking for within the engineering study. And then that RFP would go out, and then that's when like RS or OHM or, you know, the ones that have specialized in this type of engineering study would bid on that project, because it's gonna cost us. $200,000 to do an engineering study on the site this year, so, you know, if we need to go in and do another site study on just a reuse center. I can expect that to probably be.
And like Christian, you have that experience with Kent County, like when they designed their new education center and you did the redesign of the MERT, and then you had that business development thing that they were gonna do. I don't know if that ever got off the ground or whatnot, but like, who are the engineers that you use for that, and do they come highly recommended?
Fishback is,
Interesting, okay.
that's who is supporting the, well, it wasn't Fishback for the MERV, it's Fishback for the Sustainable Business Park.
Okay, sustainable business. Yeah. What about Matt Violet and his group? They usually design wastewater treatment plants. What, do you know?
They're helping Kalamazoo right now in their HHW.
Okay.
No, sorry, Kalamazoo County, with their like a small
And what's the name of the firm?
Fleece and Vandenbrink.
Okay.
Yeah, our reps might have a role in kind of material flow through a facility like that, but we don't do engineering per se.
No, sure, dual wood on a compost site. Yeah. Okay, alright, sorry, I digress.
Like we utilize like Carrie Sanford when we did a lot of our merch stuff, but yeah, there was a lot of players in the game when we did the containers line between the engineers, the consultants, just there was a lot of people involved. So I don't know if we have any other targets for this one right now. I would think that like we would wanna see a study probably in 2027, 2028 for this one. And then that I think would really help map out who and what, and funding, I would think that we could, if we were to establish a reuse center at the facility, I think that there would be ample funding opportunities, through the state, through Eagle infrastructure grants, you know, we look at closed loop fund, we have several funding partners that have stepped up before, and would probably step up again to help with that one.
I wonder if would there be a need to evaluate whether there would be some pushback from established resale shops? Like, you know, is the county kind of stepping into our business and taking business away from us? I think
Liz,
that might
have
be
you heard?
Yeah, no, I think that there's opportunities for partnership there, because there's plenty of materials that are a thrift store, especially like if you look at like the Women's Resource Center. Like their diversion rates are about like 80% of the donations that they receive, they can't sell at that time. So they either have to like have a place for storage, so it's like only 20% of what you receive as donations is actually viable for your fundraising efforts. So I think there's an opportunity for an economy of scale for us to get the residual stuff that they can't sell, that you aggregate at our facility, and then you're working with like Goodwill of Michigan to, in trailer load quantities, getting the textiles to, at this juncture, Muskegon for their distribution, reuse and sorting center.
Even with that,
Yes.
there need to be some, you know, communication and
Yeah,
coordination with existing.
Yeah.
you would want to have that
entities
partnership.
to
Oh, I
make
really
sure
need to
we-
justify enough volume.
Yeah. There's the New Beginnings resale store, you know.
That's what that is.
Yeah.
I could just see where the perception would be that, oh, here, you know, the county's going into county.
Right.
Not at all, like, you would bring them in as partners early on, because there's a need for us as a super drop-off center. If we can process textiles and then get them to them, and then we do exchanges, you give us the stuff you can sell, the low value stuff. we'll give you the stuff that we see as value, then there's a reciprocity in the relationship and you bring them on early
Well, that's a
as
whole,
partners.
kind of a whole different ballgame, because we're sitting here talking about C and D. You know, reuse and recycling, you know, I wasn't even considering.
Oh, textiles and household goods is huge.
So,
Yeah,
couple takeaways I had, so you're talking about the thrift shops versus. If it's going to the transfer, and this stuff is already at its end of life,
Mhm.
you know, it's going in the trash, it doesn't come to the reuse center.
So some people might just say, well.
Yeah, there's
no
no
problem
right?
there. So,
Yeah.
Right.
We stopped accepting textiles in 2020 during the pandemic because the markets fell apart, because restore and thrift stores closed, just like the bottle deposits closed at the grocery stores. Thrift stores closed, so people were like, and they were doing the Marie Kondo, like cleaning out their entire house and like organizing the feng shui of their homes, because they had nothing else to do. So the market fell out, and then we took it away because it was getting wet, and then we lost our staff person. So we just completely shut it down, but people wanna recycle textiles still. And they wanna use us as a one-stop shop, because they don't wanna have to go to Habitat and then Goodwill and then yada yada, all those places. So if we could continue to be a central hub, sorting by grading and then working with those regional partners to getting materials back and forth, so.
I think what Stephanie wrote down there just captures the, you know, the
Oh, yeah, definitely.
concept of it all, so.
Yeah,
I think we could lean more towards on-site versus another location as well, based on what you said.
Yeah, I think an
With the-
on-site location is probably our best bet,
You might have to have deputies there at the time, you know, all the time, it's like, that's just crazy to hear that, you know. People come in and take it over.
well, like we heard from Hubbard County, they have very strict rules in their reuse center, like you can only come in 3 times a day, you can only come in for 15 minutes at a time. So like. I'm not sure, like, we'll explore all of those, you know, rules that we wanna implement into something like that, So there's a lot that goes into it, but I think just like having it,
So I'm here for a background check.
yeah.
I think there's a distinction to be made too about what your goals are, and that you want people to bring things with intentionality to you, you don't want them to dump it all into. You know, the trash, and then you have to sort it out at the store.
nobody's sorting it out, so.
Yeah. So. But there's also an education component to that, like, well, if my crap's going to the transfer station anyway, I'm just gonna put it out at the curb and.
Yeah.
It's gonna, you know, they'll figure it out.
And thrift stores struggle with that as well, because they don't wanna say no
Mhm.
for fear of not getting any donations. So they say yes and they keep it very open, but if you ever go to thrift stores, you'll know that there's certain ones in our region that are like, Goodwill's like, we don't take furniture, so go send it over here. Whereas like the gold mine downtown in my neighborhood, they're really space constrained. And for fear of saying no to somebody, they'll take it and then it goes right into the garbage cans. Because they don't have the mechanism for storage, they don't have the volunteers to be able to haul it from the gold mine south location to the north, where they have more space to store seasonal items. So I mean, it's complicated, but I feel like those folks are partners
Mhm.
and more recovery in our county, and also they're already recovering materials that would otherwise be going to landfill, so. Bringing them in closer and as part of a work group would be advantageous.
Okay, we only have 2 minutes left and I'm very aware of everybody's time. So Stephanie, do you wanna jump over to the work program, kind of the focus areas for the next meeting? Our staff, we will continue to flesh out the last, I think there was like 5 more, goals, and I can send them to you before the next meeting, so you have an opportunity to review them and provide feedback. Prior to that. So at our next meeting, we're supposed to start going over capacity and siting. So there are standards in part 115, under the Eagle requirements for siting facilities. And it's really to determine the capacity for managed materials and create specific goals around creating additional capacity if required. I will send out, excuse me, I'll send out in a follow-up email after this meeting, the wonderful 15 pages of the siting process in our current solid waste plan. We're not starting from scratch here, so I think that we'll really be able to lean on the former solid waste plans, siting processes, so we'll be able to pull from that. And I will also share. At least I think it would be a good idea to share the webinar on the siting process that was hosted by RRS and Eagle. Just so you have a little more background because it's something that I'm not super familiar with. So the siting process is basically, how do we want to approach if another MRF decides that they want to open up in Emmet County, or what the standards are going to be for that and how we want to do we want that to have to go to planning and zoning, is it gonna be a county? So there's just a lot behind this next one, so I will send some great follow-up educational materials. And then, do we all feel comfortable in the next meeting if we present to you the rest of these goals kind of fleshed out, and we'll include the recycling and organics goals as well, so everybody has a chance to review those.
And siting would also be like a composting site, like if we wanted to expand to be above 10,000 cubic
Yeah, it
yards
would
as a
include
large.
a landfill, a MRF, a compost, what those siting requirements could look like will be, yeah, so. All right. Does anybody have any last thoughts, feedback, any public comment?
What'd you think, Darcy?
Y'all are brilliant and well connected, and I'm humbled, in the presence of such great minds. So authentic feedback, thank you all.
We're happy you're here.
That'd be.
You can join in the fun. All right. I think, Doug, are we ready? Does anybody have any?
Okay, well, hearing no further comment or suggestions, 12:01, I'll entertain a motion to conclude the meeting.
I'll make a motion to conclude the
Okay,
meeting.
Lindsay, any second? Second. So, meeting wrapped up at 12:01.
Thank you all. Thank you,
Perfect.
Stephanie.
Thank you so
Natalie.
much. Sorry, we ran a little, getting through the goals, but yeah, I think we can sit down, we'll flash those out, we'll come up with some measurements, the targets. Timetables, and we'll get them to you before the next meeting, and